Hi, everybody. This is a podcast where real doctors discuss fake medical emergencies. That means that unless you suddenly can't do that on television, this podcast is not medical advice. If you need medical advice or medical care, please contact your doctor.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jackson Vane.
I'm Johnny Kolosinski. You might remember me from such podcasts as The Work Stout, a CrossFit and booze podcast.
Get the hell out of here.
This is Hi Everybody, a Bad Medicine podcast. Every week, we talk about what Hollywood gets right and wrong about medicine and how the body works. With us, once again, for the first time in a very long time, is Dr. Greg Winter.
Hey guys, what's going on? Hi everybody.
Hey, he got it.
You gonna pitch our socials?
Oh yeah, we are on the social medias. We are on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and if I remember to do it in time, TikTok at Hi Everybody MD. And you can also find us online at www.hieverybodymd.com.
You guys are talking now?
We're working on it. I think would be good TikTok content. You will also be able to see us live at Comic-Con Special Edition on Saturday, November 27th, from 3 to 4 p.m. in rooms that are noted in the show notes.
So you guys are going to invite me to that, right?
Yeah. Greg Winter is going to be our special guest. Courtney Nicholas and Dr. Eva Farrelly, who has not actually been heard on the show yet. Farrelly. Are going to be just our regular guests.
Yeah. But it'll be a fun time. It's the Bad Movie Medicine Holiday Special for the people that are going if they want to look it up in the schedule.
Yeah, the Bad Movie Medicine Holiday Special.
Yes.
This episode, however, we are not discussing something holiday related, even though we're coming up on Thanksgiving. We are going to be discussing Season 2, Episode 2 of the Nickelodeon series Pete and Pete.
It's called The Field of Pete. And I know Johnny's going to ask, why did you pick this episode?
Yeah.
I fell into a deep, I guess, nostalgia hole.
Pete hole?
A deep pee hole? Yeah.
Yeah.
Pete hole. Pete hole.
A real deep Pete hole. And watched a lot of episodes. And when this episode crossed my path, I thought this would be a really good one to discuss. I guess if you guys have never heard of and or watched The Adventures of Pete and Pete, it's about two brothers named Pete and their very weird adventures through a random suburban town. And it's very surreal. And this show was pretty darn advanced for its age.
It absolutely feels like something that would have been on Adult Swim had Adult Swim been a thing.
Yeah. I recently saw, there's a Nickelodeon documentary that came out in 2020. I think it's just called Nickelodeon Documentary or something. And they kind of went through a lot of this stuff, and it's sort of amazing to see how some of those shows, like Clarissa Explains It All and Pete, how they are things that were so far advanced when it comes to comedy or filming or just like show structure that now seem very standard, but also they were on a kids network and they certainly were not standard at the time.
It was definitely a kids show written for their parents to watch with them.
Right.
More than anything.
Yeah, like it very much feels like something that led into Arrested Development now, for example.
I know exactly how you feel, and it just feels like, oh man, if this came out right now, it would fit in with anything that was sort of, critically acclaimed, top of the line stuff, and still is. It was very much engaging at that time, at that age, and still engaging now as an adult. I think Katie said, like, oh, it's about this, and it's like, no, it's about the thing I'm thinking about, because it's very well written, so you can make it be about.
It's so surreal too. Like the topics that they discuss are very kind of vague things, but like you said, it's kind of like English class. What did you take out of this book?
What did you get from
it?
This
is an episode that's about getting brain freeze from slushies because you win baseball games, but the guy who's making the brain freeze slushies is named Bob Oppenheimer.
I mean, deep cuts.
They were swinging for the fences with stuff, and that's why it's still good, as opposed to when you make something for a particular audience, then it won't stand the test of time, whereas this really does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I didn't grow up with cable at this point in time, and so
you poor bastard.
Exactly.
I had it at my grandma's house. So
Exactly. I had it at my grandma's and the babysitters.
Saturday night Nick at grandma's.
The old snick.
But because of that, I didn't really grow up with Pete and Pete. And so seeing it now was the first time really for me. And I was still entertained for the entire 24 minutes.
Yeah. It's a good... this one's actually one of those like really good episodes, I think, too, in general for the whole series. There's a lot of memorable characters, but kind of pitching the premise of this episode, Big Pete, older Pete, is on a baseball team, and they're playing a bunch of games for a very ruthless coach. And the coach is pretty much only driven by a slushy drink. I guess that's the only joy he finds in life. And it's the slushy drink is called the Orange Lazarus. And it's too cold. Too delicious. The guy who created it just wanted world peace, and that's why he created this drink. But if you drink it too quick, you get brain freeze, and that's like the big driving factor.
To be specific, if consumed too quickly, the super cold Lazarus could shut down the central nervous system in 1.2 seconds, resulting in a condition known as brain freeze.
Yes.
I mean, there's so many like layers of this that you can bring to it as an adult, and it's like this coach thinks too much. He needs to shut his brain down.
You mean freeze his brain? It's got to slow it down a little bit. Brain freeze is... I actually had to look up what the technical term of brain freeze is. It's called a cold stimulus headache, also known as brain freeze. Thank you, Wikipedia. But it lasts about 20 seconds to about 2 minutes or so. If you shut down your central nervous system in 1.2 seconds, you're dead. That's probably the nicest.
But you're not dead until you're warm and dead.
Touche. But your central
I've been
nervous...
listening to episodes of this podcast.
You know, I did write that down. Do you know what the cure for brain freeze is?
Sticking your thumb on the roof of your mouth?
So it's actually sticking your tongue to the roof of your mouth.
Yeah, but that is a thing that people say, but also waiting about 10 seconds does the same exact thing.
Or warm water.
Often, doing something active makes you feel like you're curing something when really you just needed a little bit of time.
That is true.
Like any of the diseases we treat on a normal basis.
I'm trying to think of one that
like the cold.
Okay. Like cancer. Just give it a little time; it'll go away.
I mean, some things
because you die.
Some things don't get better. Fair enough. But a lot of what we do in medicine is buy yourself some time, which might be very supportive time. Which might be like, hey, you need fluids, you need IVs, you need
to make it through this,
right? But if you do that, your body will take care of it. But we got to support your body in the meantime.
Yeah, and it is like it's not fun, but there's old wives' tales, and I definitely get this at work is where people. I'm not lying, have actually come into work for brain freeze, and they thought something was wrong.
Like, what happened? I mean, I guess if it's the first time that's
they said
ever
it's
happened
too
to you,
hot outside for him to get brain freeze.
Well, you deal with a different segment of the population.
I kind of do, but I go brain freeze is indiscriminate of how the temperature is outside.
Yeah,
you can get brain freeze when it's cold. You can get brain freeze when it's
literally the temperature inside your noodle. Your head, your noggin.
Yeah, literally your noodle.
Godspeed.
Take that as you will.
Godspeed, little noodle. I also learned cats can get it.
What?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
I know that dogs can get like their intestines twisted from like ice water.
That I did not know.
That might be a lie, but I've read that.
That might
on
be
the
a thing
internet.
that you read.
But
I think maybe that's a big takeaway point. Is just because you read something doesn't make it true.
Yeah, but cats can actually get brain freeze. I'm gonna go try that on my cat later.
I don't think Iggy's gonna do it.
No,
Iggy doesn't have enough teeth for brain freeze.
You don't need teeth for brain freeze. You need a brain for brain freeze. Come on.
So, how close is brain freeze to a migraine?
Not.
Okay.
So there's two theories on how brain freeze can happen.
I heard differently, but I would like to hear Jackson's first.
Well, there's two theories.
Doctor fight.
It can either affect your trigeminal nerve, and that can cause a cold, or it can cause like coldness of the anterior cerebral artery, and that can also cause like the pain when it refers upward.
Yeah,
which is not a migraine.
Correct.
And
but trigeminal neuralgia type of pain can be like a migraine.
Can be like a migraine, but not a migraine.
Yeah, and so the trigeminal nerve is one of the big nerves that branches off from your
It's cranial nerve 5.
Yeah, that's why it's one of the big ones. Sorry, I didn't do well in anatomy. I don't know if I've explained this before, but
You don't remember your mnemonic?
I don't.
0002 touch in that one?
No, I don't.
You never learned that one?
Yeah, well, you test better.
That one was...
What is this mnemonic?
It's terrible.
Now I do remember.
Okay. So obviously we need a Patreon.
We can't...
Or an OnlyFans, depending on how terrible this one
Probably
is.
closer to an OnlyFans, to be honest.
I mean, this is something you can look it up. It is the way to remember the 12 cranial nerves, and it's a mnemonic, and it's like, to touch and feel something. I mean, I didn't do well. I don't remember. I remember that it is a mnemonic.
It is.
But it's the third one? Fifth one. See? Story checks out. But that one, the fifth one, branches into 3 nerves, which goes to the 3 spot. It's like upper face,
V1,
mid
V2,
face.
V3.
Yeah. And so those, like, you can actually do a lot of diagnostic stuff if somebody has, like, specifically on one side of the face, in one part of the face, you can find out a lot about something that's going on if they have a stroke or an affected area. But the trigeminal nerve basically serves your face. And
yeah, it's like 3 branches of the face. So, like, I know this is an audio medium, but if you kind of do the number 3 like this, like one finger's touching your forehead, one's touching your nose, and one's touching your chin. Yeah, that's basically the
imagine if you're doing west side on your face, sideways.
Mm-hmm.
East side?
East side?
Yeah. On your face, that's basically how it distributes, but it also can cause like a referred pain too. So just because the pain is in the stimulus is in your mouth, the feeling is on your face and your head.
That's the reason I asked, is because I do sometimes get migraines, and I do more frequently get brain freeze because boozy slushies are now a thing. Mm-hmm. And they happen in kind of close to the same place. And I use this instead of, actually going to see a primary care doctor.
How dare you? Did you not listen to the disclaimer at the beginning of this podcast?
Right at the beginning. Well, also,
I haven't added it yet, so it still counts.
It's not an actual emergency.
It is true. It is not an emergency.
You should not go to the ER for
Please do not go to the ER for brain freeze. And actually, we actually use hypothermia as a therapeutic thing. If Courtney was here, she could talk about more of it. But we'll cool your brain if you were in cardiac arrest.
Yeah, that's part of the thing that has been said on here before. It's you're not dead until you're warm and dead. In fact, Johnny said it earlier this show.
Counts as before.
So if you suddenly are not circulating oxygen, one of the things you can do to protect damage is to cool your body down. And so you can use it as a protection. Or also, if somebody comes in cold, you don't know what's going on until you warm them up.
Yeah. And I definitely used that like 2 weeks ago, where we put on a cooling helmet. It looks like the cooling kind of stuff that you do for your PC.
I've seen that, yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's what basically circulates through. It's just like cold water, and it just removes heat from around your head. So,
and also you can play Fortnite that much faster. Your graphics will be so much better.
That kid is running Fortnite at such high speeds right now. It's amazing. The graphic fidelity is amazing on that one. But going back to
1994 Nickelodeon.
That was a big kind of plot point for this whole thing, is that people were drinking their Lazarus too quick and getting brain freeze.
To the point that they actually had seizures.
Which that seizure looked like crap. As a guy who sees a lot of seizures, we have to... One of the big things I have to tell apart is, like, is this a real seizure or a fake seizure? Like, constantly.
Because you're in an emergency situation.
Correct. And, the real seizures, it's usually like a flexing, tight muscle flexing kind of movement. Kind of, again, audio medium.
Yeah, but he's basically doing like a curling method.
Kind of like that
motion.
Not so much like a full body jerking kind of thing where they're vibrating on the table. And...
the example of that, and this is going to be also like 1994, so sorry anyone,
from 1994,
well, born recently.
Sorry, time travelers.
The seizure in Powder is awful. And I'm apparently the only one who remembers the seizure in Powder.
If you can only see like Greg and my face right now, just going,
who? That's what when I saw the seizure laid out on the table, I thought of.
Yeah, it's not
I'm sorry, I'm still dealing with to touch and feel. And I'm trying to figure out how feel is.
To touch. That's 5.
Oh, but that's trigeminal TF. Now I get it. Oh, so the way a mnemonic works is it's not the thing that you're thinking of.
Correct.
It's the letter of the thing that is in the mnemonic.
Yeah.
Perfect.
But speaking of like mnemonics and stuff like that, you know what they call. So I have to deal with fake seizures, kind of like I mentioned, and they look like the ones we saw in this episode, where the body's like violently shaking, uncontrolled, kind of. It used to be called pseudo seizures. You know what they're called now?
What, fake seizures?
No, close. Psychogenic non-epileptic seizures, or PNES.
I like when doctors have a sense of humor.
It's called PNES. And I actually had a patient that got brought in. She was an inpatient. She was staying inpatient, got brought to the emergency department. I don't know why, because they were already admitted to the hospital.
You're in the most acute setting you can be in.
Right? So they bring her in.
We need to step this one down.
We gotta go to the ER, like not to the ICU. We're gonna go to the ER. They bring her down, and the nurse just goes, "Oh, she has pseudo seizures." And I go, "Actually, they're now called psychogenic non-epileptic seizures." The girl stops seizing, goes, "That guy knows what he's talking about," and then goes back into the seizure.
Well, that means we can admit you right back up to the ward again.
And back to the psych ward you go. But that's actually what it's called now. And that's how she had those seizures. And the highest risk for people who have that disorder is knowing someone with seizures or actually having seizures.
Yeah.
And the thing about people who have seizures, they don't know what their seizures look like when they have those seizures.
Because they're having a seizure.
Correct. So they'll have these very exaggerated movements. And this is when I teach my residents the test on how to tell if it's a real seizure or not. And I'm sure, have you done it?
No, Jackson. You've never taught me anything.
The hand drop.
Which is where you put their hand above their face.
And if they,
and
if their hand slaps them on their forehead,
then it might be a real seizure.
Then that's real. But if it doesn't, then I know it's fake. So
if your hand hits you in the face, you might have a real seizure.
I did have a kid that was the kid knew my trick though and smacked himself in the face, and I actually had to go through the whole thing.
So it feels like you just never feel like someone's having a seizure.
I always do that as my first test, is the hand drop, especially if it looks like an exaggerated seizure like Teddy had in this episode.
That's one of the things that actually medicine gets real wrong. Just seizures in general, they can be really, really subtle. Usually in a show, it's a grand mal seizure where everything is going, and that's real bad. But the main thing that happens after a seizure is a person is not responsive. Like, you can't ask them anything, and that's one of the things I notice a lot, where they just like go into being like, "Oh, what happened?" Like, "Oh, I don't remember." Like, no, you're not speaking. So you are. All of your muscles and neurons have been firing. You are not doing anything.
Because you just pulled a Lucy and used 100% of your brain.
Touche. I tell families it's like the worst workout you ever had.
Yeah.
You've been like flexing and contracting every muscle, and your brain's also been firing this whole time. You're not going to want to do anything for about 20 to 30 minutes after a seizure.
One of the other tests is like people usually they urinate on themselves.
That's how you know the dedicated
right.
ones.
That's a real dedicated pseudo seizure.
Like,
It's a dedicated penis.
Yeah. But yeah, they become incontinent. They really can't respond. They have no recollection of what happened. And that's easy way to pick out fake stuff. Also, I know that it's something that you have to deal with, but man, that would be a frustrating thing to see, is somebody faking a seizure in an acute care setting. Oh, I cannot speak today. In an acute care setting where like there's so much other stuff happening, and just like you have to deal with somebody faking an illness.
You know how to get out of the waiting room real quick? You fake a seizure.
Yeah, I mean, and that's true. Like
more so than chest pain.
You have to deal with it.
Not medical advice.
I mean, don't go to the ER for anything unless you have an emergency. Don't go to the ER.
I mean, this is why
it's called emergency room. I mean, not chronic abdominal pain room.
This is why I tell people there's two reasons why you get seen really quickly in the ER. One, you're really, really sick, or two, the waiting room's empty.
Right, exactly.
Those are the only two reasons you're going to get seen really quick by me. And it's not for maliciousness or anything like that. It's just I have stuff to deal with.
Right.
Your priority is keeping whoever is about to not be alive alive.
Also, I tell people I might not figure out what's wrong with you today. I just got to make sure you don't die here today.
And you don't die until I get you to someone who can do more in-depth.
You don't die until you get into me, and then it's okay to die.
I mean,
Greg is a palliative care doctor, which means hospice and not,
I mean, that's why I tell my residents and my fellows,
orthopedist.
like, no one dies in my department. They die in other departments.
They can die in anyone else.
It's horrible. It's been a long stretch of shifts.
Mm-hmm.
That's what happens. But back to this.
Back
episode.
to Pete and Pete.
I'm trying to see what else. Also, brain freeze doesn't make you act like you're drunk. And I think that was like one thing that happened towards the end of the episode when Big Pete brought out a thermos, or not thermos, I guess a big old cooler.
The McDonald's orange drink.
That's what it looked like. It looked like a big old cooler.
It's the orange jug.
It is
the orange
jug.
Football jug.
Yeah. And that was filled to the brim with Lazarus. The kids drank it and started acting all drunk, like kind of wandering around, climbing fences in a stuporous phase. And I don't think, I shouldn't say I don't think, I know it doesn't happen like that.
Right. And this was pre-Boozy Slushy being the commonplace at every bar in San Diego.
I take it back. This might be a fun Lazarus. I mean, who knows what that...
Yeah, you don't know what's in that.
The show was ahead of its time.
It's true. Bob Oppenheimer might have made some real good Lazarus there.
Real good Lazarus.
I mean...
That's my Jack Black cover band.
Real good Lazarus?
Moving on from the slushies, there was one other thing that really jumped out at me in this episode.
Yes.
And that was the fact that the reason that they got Pete's little brother trash talking on the team was because so many people were knocked out by the flu vaccine.
You mean firing off them spike proteins?
Exactly. Because not only, it wasn't that they all got the vaccine and then felt icky for 2 days. It's that, and again, I'm quoting from the episode, the tiny their catcher, I believe, no, because that was Pete. But one of their players got the flu vaccine. Teddy got the flu vaccine, and the tiny bit of the flu vaccine, flu virus in the vaccine made Teddy the carrier, and he passed it along.
Can I just say, Teddy had a real bad episode. He got the flu from the flu shot, got seizures.
I don't think he spoke.
He didn't.
I like that a tiny bit of misinformation infects the whole team with nonsense, and it created more trash talk than they've ever seen before, right? It feels very much
ahead of its time.
Just to be really clear, getting the flu shot does not give you the flu. It's a non-live virus. It cannot give you the flu. It cannot give you the flu. Can it make you feel a little bit ill for a day or two? Yeah, that's the point. It's activating your immune system. You should probably feel a little bit under the weather, but way less under the weather than getting the actual flu.
I tell people it's like you're more likely to catch a flu from going to get your flu shot than actually getting the flu shot.
I mean, same setting. The COVID vaccine does not give you COVID. Simple as that. It's not a maybe it will. It does not. And also, getting COVID has a lot more complications than any of the side effects that you could potentially get from getting the vaccine, which is mainly just activating your immune system against something that's really, really dangerous.
Yeah.
So you should get your vaccine.
I mean, that's the whole COVID vaccine thing, and people saying they got sick or with COVID now. People are actually telling me they got COVID from the COVID vaccine. There's actually a new thing out where people say they can deactivate the vaccine because of all the people who got the vaccine so that they can still work. And they would take a bath in borax.
I mean,
please don't take a bath in borax.
This episode brought to you by borax.
By all the borax. It's very weird.
No, wrong. Oh, borax.
Yeah.
Not borat. Okay.
I think a thing that sort of we have really lost is just learning, like thinking about what your source is. And that's a really hard thing to talk about on a funny podcast about medical stuff, but just like get medical stuff from medical people. Simple as that.
Trustworthy medical people.
Medical people that you're seeing in person and not listening to on a podcast.
Right.
And talking about brain freeze from orange slushies.
Right.
Perfect.
Maybe in person.
Yeah.
Just not right now. But yeah, this episode, hearing them say, that's like the biggest, I think, misnomer why people don't want to get their flu shot is that they're afraid they're going to get sick from the flu shot.
Yeah.
There is the live attenuated version of it, which is the spray in the nose.
Which is also not a thing that most people get. You only get that if you say you're allergic to eggs, and so then they don't give you the normal flu shot.
Yeah, or you're afraid of needles.
Right.
Which way too many people.
Now, and I know that in 1994, neither of you were physicians yet.
No.
But
debatable.
What level of cell service were they getting from this flu vaccine?
I knew you were going to go there. Well, when I had the brick, my parents actually had that brick Motorola phone. I'm sure it boosted it quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Or, you could also be talking about your car phone.
Yeah.
Also boosting that up too.
I mean, one of the big things
pager
in Pete and Pete is his mom has a metal plate in her skull, and that's a real thing. You can mess with radio waves locally. It's any potential thing that can disturb radio waves in a short distance. If somebody's head is near a microphone, you might hear some distortion. And they definitely play with that in the show a little bit. But
if this was a video podcast, I'd be slamming my head into the microphone right now. But it's not, so you're welcome.
I think the good part, there was one scene where I think Little Pete shot the garage door opener waves off of her head to hit the garage door to open it up.
I think they've done that before. I mean, they play with it. It's ahead of its time. You should definitely watch Pete and Pete.
And Midsummer. This is a good episode. It's like a fun, lighthearted one. But especially now, since people aren't imbibing as many frosty drinks because it's a little colder now.
Except in San Diego this weekend.
Good Lord.
Oh, man, it was really hot.
Yeah.
One of the things that, that song that starts Pete and Pete,
Hey Sandy.
Hey Sandy, I think the band is Polaris. I know it is because I looked it up. But
it's also on the
But you wanted to feel a little cooler.
Right, exactly. By hey, man, I know this. But I used to put it on mixes all the time because it's a great song, and it's also like a minute and a half. And it has it sets up the show in such a weird way because that not really being able to know what the lyrics are, but they're also kind of on the tip of your tongue. It gives you this feeling of sort of remembering something, but also not really knowing. And that's what I feel about every episode of Pete and Pete. It's always oh yeah, this is great. This is great. I sort of get it, and also it's just makes me feel like I'm a kid. It is a great show. You should totally watch it.
It's definitely easy to find on a website that rhymes with ShmooTube.
Right. Normally we'd say, hey, watch this on Amazon. Watch this on Hulu. Watch this on even Paramount Plus, which used to be CBS All Access.
But there's no
Pete and Pete.
It's not anywhere, and actually,
it's because the music's licensed.
Yeah, and that's a big thing about shows that are only streaming is that the streaming license is a different thing, and so a lot of even Seinfeld not Seinfeld. I'm trying to think of a show.
Dawson's Creek didn't have the Dawson's Creek song.
That was a really weird thing where Dawson's Creek didn't have.
There was no I Don't Want to Wait.
I did not know
and
that.
Then it's almost
this year.
It's almost a different show then.
Yeah. That changes Pacey Con forever.
Yeah.
And so Pete and Pete is one. I have all of it. I bought all of the DVDs. Actually, I think I have them on Blu-ray at this point. But it's one of those things where it's going to be, it can't be the same as it was because nobody can release it because all the cool musicians did cameos, and you can't just release that. So,
but definitely this is one of those really fun episodes. If you want to take a nostalgia trip back in time, this is a good one.
Yeah. Speaking of nostalgia trips back in time.
Also King of Fraud. That's a good one.
Oh, King of Fraud?
Yeah.
Oh, I love that episode.
That's a great episode.
That, and then the Sick Day episode's really
they're
good.
They're all so good.
And there's
when it had
30 of them?
There's not very many.
Martin Van Buren stuck in Pete's nose. Come on.
I
want to talk about that one
as
day.
An adult. That has so many different implications.
But that was one of my favorite episodes. And now it's an ER doctor removing marshmallows out of kids' noses.
Yeah,
Static Shock does not remove them out of noses.
I feel like you don't know what a Van Buren is.
No.
Yeah, that's why this is great.
But also, I assume you're not talking about the unreleased Fallout 3 from the late 90s.
I'm just saying that means that they did know what it was, and it's that's why they didn't pick that name by accident.
I thought it was just because of his fuzzy hair, and it makes it very easy to lodge in your head.
Yeah, you'll see.
Jackson is Googling this right now.
Is there a Lyndon B. Johnson too?
I'm just...
I am gonna...
Rule 34.
Speaking of Rule 34, I have an important question.
I don't like what I looked up, you guys.
But they wrote that.
I regret everything.
This is why I put my phone on.
There was a
airplane
time
mode.
in my life where I did not know what this was.
I mean, just be thankful that like I knew that randomly. You didn't have to know it randomly.
I'm sad.
But now you will. But now you will.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I'm going to go ahead and change the subject now for real this time.
To something even more pleasant.
That's where I'm going, yeah. Because the human centipede bills itself as 100% medically accurate. If that's the case, and that's our baseline, which means that's what 100% means, for those who are just joining us for the first time in a while,
It's been a while.
how medically accurate is Season 2, Episode 2 of The Adventures of Pete and Pete, Fields of Pete? Dr. Jackson Bain.
So I actually wrote down 50% before we started this episode.
I think you forgot how it works.
I did. I really did. It's been a little bit. Is it Lucy bad? No.
I don't live in the past, live in the now.
I mean, if I live in the now, it's not human centipede accurate. That's for sure. Everything they talked about for brain freeze was wrong. The seizures look bad.
The vaccine information.
The vaccine information itself is egregious in itself. You know what? 40%. Screw it.
Oh,
I went
fair.
down.
took
Yeah.
it down.
Oh, that's bad. What's crummy is that it's like I like this, so I want to give it a higher rating.
we're not
but
judging
that's
based
not
on the
what we're
episode.
Yeah,
rating.
it's not quality. It's
quality of medicine.
yeah,
So it is quality. So I'm right.
it's qualitative quality, qualified quality.
Qualitative.
You know, I got to agree because I mean that type, especially in today's climate, to get that type of vaccine information, and I know that it's tongue in cheek for them, but also like
It's not
that's
now.
exactly what like you get a little bit of bad information and that stuff snowballs, and then suddenly you're chugging slushies on the sideline to get brain freeze in order to win a baseball game.
And
like,
and somebody's saying, no, I can't get this COVID vaccine because I saw an episode of,
Right.
of Pete and Pete.
We're so close to all of that happening.
I mean, if you add the letters in Pete and Pete, that gives you what?
8.
No.
Gives you
Pete
8.
and Pete gives you 11.
So
and then
that's
it's season
how many,
2.
How
but
many
it's
players
season
are on a
2.
baseball
No,
team?
but it's season 2 plus episode 2. So that's 4.
and
And then if you add 2 to that, because there's 2 kids,
So, yeah,
it
this
adds
is
up to
the-
17.
this is the
so you
problem.
get Q.
so basically, wow.
I just derailed you real hard.
That's one of those things where like if you have an answer in mind, then you can make it get there, and that's not what research is. That's not how you should look at medicine. You should
This episode was sent to us by Q.
you should get some trusted sources that actually matter. You should follow medical advice from people that you trust
And who you don't just know from podcasts.
right and you know, get your vaccines, man. It's about time to get your vaccines.
To be fair,
Also, I didn't give a number because Jackson derailed me with his Q count.
It's real cute.
I'm gonna say 37% because I'm upset that you derailed me.
Is that 20 plus 17? The 17th letter, which is
Yes,
Q.
Yeah, we got there. You
Thank
did it again.
Thank you.
Piece of shit.
I've missed this.
What are you talking about? We did this last week.
We did. Yeah, we absolutely did this last week and released that episode an hour before this one. Is there anything that you would do besides changing everything about the show that was not baseball, because not a baseball podcast, to make this more medically accurate?
It's hard to do for a show like this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think part of the show is the fact that it's so like
It's surreal.
it's so weird and surreal, and the things that are happening, you aren't sure if it's in someone's imagination or
Yeah.
what. And like
The premise is an 11-year-old has a tattoo,
Right.
and that's fine. It's
7-year-old.
weird, but it's fine. Oh, he's 7?
Yeah,
Yeah.
He's a big 7-year-old.
And it started. He got the tattoo when he was 7.
Okay.
he is a big 7-year-old.
And, like,
Also,
it's weird in the show, but it's not, like,
Right.
But no one
CPS
questions.
weird.
But no one questions. it.
right.
Yeah. It's in the sideburn state. It's fine. Everything's okay in the sideburn state.
What is the sideburn state?
If you look on the license plate, it actually says sideburn state.
Is it where Mattingly's from?
I feel like it's like Minnetonka or something like that.
I thought I told you to get rid of those sideburns.
I looked it up, by the way, and Homer at the Bat came out 2 years before this one.
Oh, yeah?
Really?
Yeah.
God, well, fair enough.
I feel old. Wow, what a good way to end the episode, you jerk. How dare you?
And as we all look wistfully into the sunset and
that is what just
reflect
happened. All of us
upon
kind of looked
our
up like,
twilight
It
years.
just got real sad. Thanks a lot for nothing. I'm happy we picked this episode.
Yeah.
I'm also happy when people show up to see us in Comic-Con.
Yeah, and you can do that, like we said, at 3 o'clock on Saturday after Thanksgiving for Comic-Con Special Edition. You'll know it's Special Edition because Jar Jar actually shoots first.
Wow. That derailed the thing I was going to say, which is the trigeminal nerve branches are ophthalmic, maxillary, and mandibular, which is a thing that if you did any medical training, you were screaming at the podcast radio earlier when we didn't mention it. But
Or
it'll look
you
like
can
you're-
scream at hieverybodipodcast@gmail.com or by calling 530-DOC-DORB. That's 530, Jackson.
DOCTORB. I forgot the numbers right now. I didn't write it down.
The
Pass.
extra B is for better come to Comic-Con.
Yep.
Exactly.
Nailed it.
Yeah.
Nailed it. All right. With that, folks, we will hopefully see you on Saturday. If not, thank you for listening. We are really glad to be able to do this again and be able to do it live in just a few days.
Yep. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, folks.
We'll see you soon.